A millionaire allows a homeless boy to bring his mother to his restaurant. He is stunned when she appears. Ronald Clark stood at the heart of his thriving restaurant, City Sanctuary, in New York City. The soft, ambient lighting glinted off polished silverware and crystal glasses, casting a warm, welcoming glow across the room. Each detail, from the fresh flowers adorning every table to the carefully arranged seating, reflected Ronald's unwavering commitment to perfection. As he scanned the dining area, double-checking that every element was just right, a commotion near the entrance caught his attention. Looking over, he noticed a young boy, maybe 10 years old, lingering just outside on the sidewalk. The boy was selling sweets, his clothes tattered and his face marked by dirt, but his eyes held a look of determination that struck Ronald deeply, stirring memories he hadn't touched in years. He observed as the boy, with a blend of hope and desperation, tried to attract the attention of busy passers-by. Most people walked by without a second glance, wrapped up in their own lives, indifferent to the boy's struggle. A familiar ache of empathy tugged at Ronald's heart. He remembered what it was like to be that kid, trying to find his way in a world that often felt harsh and unkind. When Ronald went outside, the cool evening air met him, which was a sharp contrast to the warmth of his restaurant. He approached the boy with a gentle smile. "Hey there," he said, keeping his voice relaxed. "Selling sweets?" The boy looked up, eyes wide with surprise and a hint of caution. "Yes, sir," he replied softly. Ronald kneeled down to meet him at eye level. "How about you take a break and have a meal with me, my treat?" The boy glanced down at the sweets in his hands, his stomach growling audibly in response. "I don't know, sir. I have to sell these," he replied, uncertain. Ronald nodded, understanding. "I get it, but it's hard to work on an empty stomach. Come inside, grab a meal, and we can talk. You can leave your sweets here, they'll be safe." After a brief pause, the boy finally nodded. "Okay," he said quietly, his voice wavering with uncertainty. But there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Ronald guided Roy into the bustling heart of the city restaurant, settling them at a small, quiet table tucked in the back. The boy's gaze wandered around, absorbing the luxurious ambiance with wide-eyed wonder. Ronald signaled to a waiter, saying, "We'll have 2 of tonight's specials, please." As they waited for their food, Ronald observed Roy closely. Roy maintained a cautious demeanor, despite being obviously hungry. This guardedness was a result of his time spent living on the streets. They sat in a cozy corner, away from the restaurant's noise, with the aroma of food filling the air. Soon, 2 steaming plates arrived, and Ronald encouraged, "Go ahead, dig in. It's really good." Roy hesitated, but then took a tentative bite, his face lighting up as he savored the flavors. With each bite, his initial caution began to fade, and he ate more eagerly. Ronald watched him, memories of his own difficult childhood surfacing. "So, Roy," Ronald began softly, "tell me a little about yourself. How long have you been selling sweets?" Roy paused, his fork mid-air, then answered with a shrug. "For a while, since my dad passed." Ronald nodded with understanding, his expression empathetic. "I'm sorry to hear that. It must be hard on you and your mom." Roy's eyes dropped to his plate. "Yeah," he murmured. "She's been sick since Dad's gone. It's just the 2 of us now." Roy's words tugged at Ronald's heart. He understood the pain all too well, the loss of a parent and the struggle to keep going when life felt shattered. Images of his own father and the bitterness that had filled their home surfaced in his mind. "What's your mum's name?" Ronald asked gently, keeping his tone light. "Carolyn," Roy replied. "She used to be really happy, you know. But now she's just tired, always sad." Ronald's mind wandered to his own mother, who abandoned him when he was a young child and left him in the care of his father. a man who had struggled with his own demons. The similarities between Roy's story and his own were striking. "She must be proud of you for helping her out like this," Ronald said, offering a warm smile. Roy shrugged. I just wish things were different." A hush settled between them briefly, interrupted only by the gentle clinking of utensils and the low hum of nearby conversations. Ronald took a steadying breath, wrestling with memories brought back by Roy's story. "You know," he began, voice firm but warm, "I wasn't much older than you when I had to make it on my own. My father, well, let's just say he didn't make life easy." Roy looked up, curiosity flashing in his eyes. "What happened?" he asked. Ronald paused, deciding to reveal a piece of his history. "I ran away. I couldn't handle it anymore. Ended up on the streets just like you. It was tough, but someone eventually helped me and gave me a shot at a better life." "Who?" Roy leaned in slightly, eager. "A woman named Carolyn," Ronald answered, a fond smile crossing his face. "She took me in and taught me everything I know about cooking. She believed in me when nobody else did." Roy looked down, poking at his food thoughtfully. "I just wish my mum could get better. It's hard seeing her struggle like this." Ronald reached across the table, gently placing his hand on Roy's. "Roy, I want to help, not just tonight, but going forward. How about you bring your mum here for dinner tomorrow? We can sit down, talk, and see what might be possible." "You'd really do that?" Roy's voice was filled with cautious hope. "Absolutely," Ronald replied firmly. "Everyone deserves a chance, you and your mom included." Roy's expression softened, and he nodded. "All right, I'll ask her. Thank you, Mr. Clark." "Call me Ronald," he corrected kindly. "And you're welcome, Roy. Now finish up. We've got a big day ahead tomorrow." As Roy returned to his meal, Ronald leaned back, reflecting. His mind drifted to nights spent shivering alone and the ache of hunger that had been a constant companion. Helping Roy and his mother felt like coming full circle, a way to honor Carolyn, the woman who had saved him. As the restaurant began to empty, Ronald and Roy made their way to the door. The boy's posture seemed more relaxed, his steps more confident. Ronald watched him disappear into the night, a renewed sense of purpose filling him. Tomorrow, he'd meet Roy's mother, and together, they'd find a way to give Roy a real chance. It was the least he could do, a promise he could now pass on, born from the kindness he'd once received. Ronald Clark stood at the heart of his bustling restaurant, quietly preparing for a dinner that felt more important than any other. The restaurant, usually lively and bustling, had been closed off for a special gathering. He carefully rearranged the table settings yet again, determined to make every little detail flawless. His excitement and nerves were unmistakable, with a growing sense of anxiety settling deep within him. Checking his watch, he saw it was almost time. Taking a deep breath, he tried to steady himself. This evening wasn't just another dinner. It was a long-awaited moment to reconnect with the past and express gratitude for a debt he could never repay. He moved toward the entrance, ready to welcome his guests. The soft chime of the doorbell caught his attention, and Ronald turned to see Roy and his mother Carolyn entering. Roy's face was a mix of excitement and slight unease, but it was Carolyn's presence that took Ronald's breath away. Time had left its mark on her, but her eyes still held that familiar warmth and resilience that once changed his life. "Good evening," Ronald greeted them, his voice steady, despite his racing heart. "I'm so glad you could come." Roy smiled brightly. "Thank you for inviting us, Mr. Clark." Ronald corrected him with a gentle smile. "Please, call me Ronald." As Carolyn stepped forward, their eyes met. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, and she paused, her eyes widening. "Ronald," she whispered, her voice laced with surprise and emotion. Ronald nodded, his throat tight. "Yes, Carolyn, it's me." They stood in silence, memories and years of unspoken words filling the space between them. Roy glanced from his mother to Ronald, sensing the depth of the moment without fully grasping it. "Carolyn," Ronald said, his voice wavering. "I never thought we'd meet again. You saved my life." Carolyn's eyes brimmed with tears. "Ronald, look at you. You've become everything I always believed you would." They moved closer, and he reached out to hold her hands. The touch was grounding, real. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice full of heartfelt gratitude. Carolyn gave his hands a gentle squeeze, her gaze intent. "I'm so proud of you, Ronald. I always knew you had it in you." Roy watched the reunion unfold, quiet and wide-eyed. Ronald turned to him, smiling warmly. "Roy, your mum is the reason I've become the person I am today." "She stood by me when no one else would," Ronald said, watching Roy's eyes grow wide with surprise. "Really? Mum, you knew Mr. Clark?" Roy asked in awe. Carolyn gave a small, tearful smile and nodded. "Yes, Roy. I met Ronald back when he was around your age, facing struggles just like yours." Ronald led them to their seats, and soon the conversation flowed naturally. As the food was served, he couldn't help but smile, watching Roy dive into his meal with such energy and excitement. "How have things been, Carolyn?" he asked gently, his gaze shifting to her. "Roy mentioned you've been having a rough time lately," he continued softly. Carolyn's expression faltered for a moment. "It's been tough, Ronald," she admitted. "Since my husband passed, everything's just unraveled. I'm doing my best for Roy, but it's hard." Ronald listened, sensing the weight behind her words. "You're not alone now, Carolyn. We'll get through this together," he assured her. A look of gratitude and relief softened her face. "Thank you, Ronald. You have no idea how much this means." The initial tenseness subsided as the evening went on, giving way to warmth and familiarity. They revisited memories, recalling both the struggles and triumphs of the past. Carolyn shared stories of Ronald's early years, his determination, his grit, while Ronald reflected on how those times had profoundly shaped him. The depth of their connection grew clearer with each word. Ronald's respect and admiration for Carolyn were obvious, while her pride in his accomplishments was unmistakable. Roy listened, absorbing the shared history that had molded these two figures in his life. "I owe you everything, Carolyn," Ronald said quietly as the evening drew to a close. "And now, I want to be there for you and Roy in whatever way you need." Carolyn's eyes filled with unshed tears. "You've already given us so much, Ronald. Just knowing you're here, it gives me hope." Ronald reached across the table, holding her hand. "Hope is just the start. We'll make things better together," he said firmly. As they left the cozy restaurant that night, a deeper bond had formed among them. Ronald watched them walk away, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The evening had revived memories and rekindled a commitment to the people who had been so pivotal in his journey. Back in his quiet office, he felt a peaceful fulfillment, a sharp contrast to the lively warmth of the night. He sat quietly at his desk, the faint light casting shadows around the room as memories crept into his mind, memories he thought he'd forgotten. That dinner with Roy and Carolyn had stirred up pieces of his past he'd tried to bury. Ronald was only 8 when his parents separated. His mother remarried and relocated after the divorce, leaving him to live with his father, a man who had become dependent on alcohol and gambling. What once was a safe, loving home transformed into a place filled with neglect and fear. The smell of stale beer, broken glass, and his father's irate, slurred voice became nighttime haunts. "Ronald," his father would shout, stumbling into the cramped apartment. "Go out there and get me some money, I need it." Trembling, Ronald would nod, slipping out into the dark streets. He was just a kid, wandering through the rough city blocks with an empty stomach and a heavy heart. The city was a harsh place for someone so young. He learned to beg, his eyes pleading with strangers for spare change, knowing he'd face his father's wrath if he came back empty-handed. Each day blurred into the next. Ronald left the apartment early, scouring the streets, picking through garbage cans for scraps, and staying clear of older, more hostile homeless men who saw him as a rival. At night, he found shelter under bridges or inside abandoned buildings, feeling the chill creep through his thin clothes while rats scurried nearby. One freezing winter night tested his strength. He huddled in a doorway, shivering uncontrollably, his breath visible in the icy air. The streets were blanketed with thick snow, and his worn shoes offered little protection from the cold. He was weak from hunger, his body sore from exhaustion. In that moment, as he drifted between sleep and waking, he questioned how much longer he could last. It was during one of these desperate nights that he met Carolyn. He had been digging through a dumpster behind a small diner, hoping to find a bit of food. His fingers were stiff from the cold, his movements sluggish. He didn't realize she was there until he heard her voice, gentle and full of concern, saying, "Hey, are you okay?" He looked up, startled, seeing a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. As he tried to stand, his legs gave out, and he fell back against the dumpster. "Hang on," she said, stepping closer to help him. "You seemed like you could use a good meal and a warm place to rest." Ronald's initial impulse was to flee, to distance himself from this stranger. But something about her presence held him still. He nodded slowly. Too drained to put up any resistance, Carolyn reached out, helping him up. "Come with me," she said gently. "My name's Carolyn. Let's get you out of the cold." She led him into a small diner nearby, where the warmth and rich scent of food wrapped around him like a cozy blanket. Carolyn sat him down and brought over a bowl of hot soup. Ronald ate eagerly, his eyes welling up as each warm spoonful chased away the chill within. Carolyn watched him with a blend of sympathy and determination. "You don't have to keep living like this," she said quietly. "There's a better life waiting for you." That evening, Carolyn took Ronald to her modest home. It was small but inviting, filled with warmth and the aroma of freshly baked bread. Ronald slept peacefully under a secure roof for the first time in years. He awoke to birds singing and sunlight filtering through the window. In the kitchen, Carolyn was humming softly as she cooked. "Good morning," she greeted him with a welcoming smile. "I made pancakes. Come on, eat up." Ronald hesitated, half wondering if this was real or just another fleeting illusion. But Carolyn's kindness was real. She became his protector, teaching him how to cook, how to read, and most importantly, how to believe in himself again. Under her care, Ronald began to heal, both inside and out. As his memories faded, Ronald opened his eyes in his office. A fresh sense of direction took its place, making the weight of the past feel a little lighter. He owed everything to Carolyn. Now, it was his turn to be a guiding light for Roy and for his mother. Ronald stood up, prepared to tackle the challenges ahead. He knew the road wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to make a difference for Carolyn, for Roy, and for himself. Ronald Clark stood outside a run-down apartment building, his heart heavy as he took in his surroundings. The area was nothing like the lively, busy streets near the city's heart. He took a deep breath and stepped inside, the stale smell of neglect greeting him as he climbed to the third floor. He couldn't escape the memories of his own past, places filled with the same hopelessness and despair. Arriving at apartment 3B, he knocked softly. The door opened with a creak, and Roy's face appeared, brightening in recognition. "Mr. Clark," Roy greeted, stepping aside to let Ronald in. "Please, come in." Ronald gave a nod and entered the modest, dimly lit space, The apartment was bare, with just a few pieces of furniture and an air of emptiness. Carolyn sat on a faded couch, her face pale and worn. She tried to stand, managing a faint smile. "Ronald, it's good to see you," she said softly. Ronald stepped forward, taking her hand gently. "Carolyn, please. You don't need to get up. Just sit," he assured her. His eyes took in the chipped paint and drafty windows, and his heart sank at the thought of Carolyn and Roy enduring these conditions. He turned to her, his resolve hardening. "Carolyn, I've seen enough," he began, his voice firm. "You and Roy can't stay here. I've arranged for both of you to move in with me, and I've set up your medical treatment at the hospital in town. It's time for a new beginning." Carolyn's eyes widened, her breath hitching. "Ronald, I can't." "You can," Ronald interjected softly. "You've done so much for me. Please, let me do this for you." Roy looked between them, torn between hope and uncertainty. "Mum, maybe we should listen to Mr. Clark," he said gently. Carolyn's resistance gave way, and she nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. "Thank you, Ronald. I don't know how to ever repay you." Ronald smiled, shaking his head warmly. "You don't have to. You helped me when I needed it most. Now let's get you both out of here." The move happened swiftly. In just a day, Carolyn and Roy settled into Ronald's spacious apartment. The change was striking. Warmth, comfort, and safety replaced the cold, harsh conditions they had known. Carolyn's first visit to the hospital was filled with mixed emotions, anxiety and relief. Ronald remained by her side, quietly supporting her as doctors ran their tests. The results were clear. Untreated health issues worsened by depression had taken their toll. But with proper treatment, recovery was within reach. Back at the apartment, Ronald found Carolyn sitting by the window, lost in thought. He stepped closer, gently resting a hand on her shoulder. "How are you holding up?" Carolyn took a deep breath and looked up at him. A bit overwhelmed, but hopeful, she admitted. "It's been so long since I felt any real hope." Ronald pulled over a chair, sitting across from her. "I've been thinking," he started, choosing his words carefully. "How would you feel about working at the city sanctuary? You were the one who taught me almost everything I know about cooking, and I could really use your skills there." Carolyn looked at him, surprise and uncertainty flickering in her gaze. "Ronald, it's been ages. I don't know if I'm ready," she said hesitantly. Ronald's voice was steady as he replied, "I believe in you, just as you once believed in me. Let's take it slow. You can ease back into it and find your rhythm again." Gratitude softened Carolyn's expression. "I'll give it a try, Ronald. For you, I'll try." The next week, Carolyn began at City Sanctuary. Her first days were tough. Her hands were unsteady and self-doubt crept in. But Ronald was there, offering support and gentle guidance at every step. He made sure she didn't take on too much too soon, helping her gradually reconnect with the world she'd once been so passionate about. Gradually, the kitchen's familiar scents and rhythms sparked her creativity again. Carolyn started experimenting with recipes, her love for cooking reigniting with each dish. Ronald watched her progress with quiet pride. The breakthrough came one night when Carolyn crafted a dish that left the entire staff speechless, its flavors bold and balanced, capturing the magic she had once shown Ronald. The applause from her colleagues filled her eyes with tears, a powerful reminder of her journey back. Ronald approached her, a proud smile lighting up his face. "I told you, Carolyn. You never lost it." Carolyn wiped her tears, smiling genuinely. "Thank you, Ronald, for everything." He nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Helping Carolyn and Roy was about more than paying back kindness. It was about honoring the bond they shared and building a hopeful future. Later that morning, Ronald watched Roy adjust his backpack outside Midtown Academy, a renowned school in New York City. The sun highlighted Roy's nervous face as Ronald placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You'll do amazing," Ronald said with a calm, reassuring tone. "Just be yourself." Roy looked up, his eyes filled with doubt. "But what if they don't like me? Or if I can't keep up?" Ronald smiled. "You've got this. Being nervous is normal, but don't forget, you're here because you belong." Roy gave a hesitant nod, gripping his backpack straps tighter. "All right, I'll give it a shot." As Roy walked towards the school entrance, Ronald felt a mix of pride and a little worry. This was a fresh start for Roy, one that would come with its own set of challenges, yet he had faith in the boy's resilience. Roy's background often made him feel like an outsider among his classmates. Midtown Academy's structured environment was a far cry from what he'd known. The high academic standards sometimes felt overwhelming, and the social circles at the school were hard for him to navigate. "How was school today?" Ronald asked one night over dinner. Roy shrugged, absent-mindedly pushing his food around. "It's all right. Just different and kind of tough." Ronald gave a nod of understanding. "It's a big adjustment, but hang in there. You'll find your place." Roy looked up, meeting Ronald's eyes. "Thanks for believing in me." "Always," Ronald said with a smile. "You're stronger than you realize." While Roy tackled the challenges of school, Carolyn was going through her own growth at the restaurant. With her health improving, she was gaining confidence again, diving back into the day-to-day operations with renewed passion for cooking. One afternoon, Ronald found Carolyn in the kitchen, testing out a new recipe. The air was filled with a rich blend of herbs and spices. "What's on the menu?" Ronald asked, leaning against the counter. Carolyn looked up, her face bright with excitement. "Just experimenting a bit. Thought I'd try adding something new to the menu." Ronald took a taste, his eyes widening in delight. "This is amazing, Carolyn. You haven't lost your touch." She laughed, a sound that had become more common as she got stronger. "Feels great to be back. I missed this." "And we missed having you here," Ronald replied warmly. "Your creativity is just what this place needed." As weeks turned to months, Carolyn's role at the restaurant grew. She brought fresh ideas and introduced new dishes that quickly became popular, showcasing her skill and creativity on every plate. The team valued her skills and held her in high regard, forming a genuine affection for her. In the evenings, Ronald, Carolyn, and Roy would come together at the dinner table, exchanging stories about their day. These moments became the foundation of a growing connection between them. They celebrated every small achievement as a group. Roy's improved grades, Carolyn's new recipes, and the ongoing success of the restaurant. One night, as they gathered around the table, Roy looked up from his homework. "Mr. Clark, do you think I'll ever feel comfortable with it? School, I mean." Ronald smiled. "It's Ronald, remember. And yes, you will. Just give it time. You're doing great." Roy nodded, reflecting on his progress. "I made a friend today. His name's Martin, and he likes soccer too." Carolyn's eyes sparkled with pride. "That's fantastic, Roy. I'm so happy to hear you're making friends." Roy's face brightened. "Yeah, he's really nice. Maybe he can come over sometime." "Of course," Ronald said warmly. "We'd love to meet him." As the evening continued, Ronald found himself thinking about the transformation in their lives. They were no longer just individuals facing their own battles. They had become a family. Carolyn's laughter rang through the room as she shared a humorous story from the kitchen, and Roy added his own tales from school. Ronald felt a deep satisfaction. This was what he'd always hoped for, a true sense of belonging and connection. As they finished cleaning up and said their goodnights, Ronald watched Roy head to his room and Carolyn to hers. He lingered a bit, savoring the warmth of the home they'd built together. Later, as Ronald was in his office reviewing the restaurant's monthly reports, he heard a sudden noise from the kitchen. Rushing out, he saw Carolyn leaning against the counter, looking pale and clutching her chest. "Carolyn, are you all right?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. She shook her head, struggling to catch her breath. "I'm not sure. I just feel so dizzy." "Sit down," Ronald said, guiding her to a chair. "We need to get you to a doctor." Just then, Roy walked into the kitchen after coming home from school and saw his mother. A flicker of panic crossed Ronald's face. He leaned closer, trying to keep his voice steady. "Mom? What's wrong?" he asked, a hint of fear creeping into his tone. Taking a deep breath, he added, "Roy, grab her coat. We need to get her to the hospital." In a hurry, they wrapped Carolyn in her coat and helped her to the car. Ronald climbed into the driver's seat, his mind racing with worry as he sped toward the nearest hospital. Every bump and turn felt heavy with anxiety, and he kept glancing back at Carolyn, who was looking weaker with each passing moment. When they arrived, medical staff immediately took Carolyn for examination, leaving Ronald and Roy in the waiting room. They exchanged tense glances, barely speaking, their thoughts clouded with worry. Time passed slowly, each minute feeling like an hour, until finally, a doctor approached them. "Mr. Clark?" the doctor called out. Ronald jumped to his feet, his heart pounding. "Yes, that's me. How is she?" he asked, bracing himself for the news. The doctor looked at him with sympathetic expression and sighed. "Carolyn is stable for now," he began, choosing his words carefully. "However, we've found some complications. Due to the lack of proper treatment in the past, her condition has caused lingering effects that can lead to episodes like the one she had today." Roy's eyes filled with tears as he looked up at the doctor. "Will she be okay?" he asked, his voice shaking with emotion. The doctor gave a reassuring nod. "Yes, she can be, with proper care and regular monitoring. But she will need to take things slow and follow a strict treatment plan to manage her condition." Ronald nodded, absorbing the weight of the doctor's words. "Thank you, doctor," he said quietly, grateful but burdened. Soon after, they were allowed to see Carolyn, who was resting in her hospital bed, her face pale and tired but conscious. Ronald moved to her bedside, gently taking her hand in his heart aching to see her so vulnerable. Carolyn managed a weak smile and whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." Her voice was barely above a whisper, filled with guilt. "Don't apologize," Ronald said softly, squeezing her hand. "We're just relieved you're okay." Roy sat on the other side of the bed, holding her other hand tightly. "We're here for you, Mom, no matter what," he said, his voice full of quiet strength. In the weeks that followed, Ronald dedicated himself to supporting Carolyn's recovery. Though it was challenging, Carolyn's spirit remained strong. She faced each day with determination, refusing to let her condition hold her back. Slowly, Carolyn returned to her role at the restaurant, starting with lighter tasks and gradually taking on more as her strength returned. One evening, after the restaurant had closed, she and Ronald sat in the empty kitchen, discussing ideas for new dishes. There was a sense of hope in the air, a feeling of renewal as they moved forward together. "What if we create a seasonal menu?" Carolyn suggested, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "We could source ingredients from local farms and change the dishes every few months." Ronald grinned, nodding. "That's a brilliant idea. It'll keep things fresh and exciting for our customers. Let's get started on planning the first one for spring." Their combined efforts breathed new life into the city's beloved restaurant. Carolyn's talent for creating unique and delicious dishes blended seamlessly with Ronald's sharp business instincts, creating an unstoppable team. Together, they introduced new items to the menu, each dish quickly winning over their loyal customers and attracting new ones, strengthening the restaurant's already excellent reputation in the community. Roy, too, began to find his place within this lively environment. After school, he would come straight to the restaurant, eager to learn the ins and outs of the business. Ronald taught him how to handle orders and manage small tasks, while Carolyn introduced him to the basics of cooking. Over time, Roy even started sharing his own ideas, feeling valued and appreciated. The sense of purpose he found at the restaurant brought a newfound confidence that positively impacted his performance at school and deepened his bond with Ronald and Carolyn. One evening, as they all sat together at the dinner table after a long, successful day, Ronald looked at Carolyn and Roy, a warm, grateful smile spreading across his face. "I'm proud of us," he said, his voice full of quiet pride. "We've had some hard times, but we've come out of them even stronger." Carolyn returned his smile, her eyes reflecting the warmth in her heart. "We really have, haven't we? And it's all because we have each other." Roy nodded enthusiastically, a wide grin brightening his face as he looked between them. "We're a team," he said, his voice filled with pride and happiness. As they raised their glasses in toast, Ronald felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope. Although their journey had been filled with challenges, it had also brought them closer together. With resilience, determination, and support from one another, they had not only built a successful restaurant, but a family rooted in love, strength, and the dream of a brighter future. As dawn broke the next morning, golden sunlight poured through the windows, casting a warm glow over the bustling kitchen. Carolyn moved with a new confidence, her energy revitalized as she prepared each dish with skill and love. Fully recovered, her passion for cooking shone in every detail. The restaurant staff admired her not just for her culinary talent, but for her strength and determination that had kept her going through difficult times. "Carolyn, this new dish is incredible," Ronald said, tasting a spoonful of her latest creation with a look of approval. "Our customers can't get enough of it." Carolyn's face lit up with a genuine smile, her eyes warm with happiness. "I'm glad they like it. It feels good to be contributing again, doing what I love," she replied. Ronald nodded, his gaze steady and sincere. "You've always been a core part of this place. Your passion and creativity are what make the restaurant so special." Business continued to flourish, and Roy's progress was equally remarkable. Under Ronald's guidance, Roy had gone from a streetwise but cautious kid to a dedicated student, working hard in school and thriving. His grades steadily improved, and he even found the confidence to join the school soccer team, feeling a true sense of belonging and purpose. Later that night, after the restaurant had closed and the last customer had left, Carolyn and Ronald shared a quiet moment together in the dining area, the day's successes still fresh in their minds. Carolyn turned to Ronald, her tone thoughtful. "I've been reflecting a lot on everything we've built together here, and there's an idea I can't shake that I want to share with you." Ronald turned to her, his eyes full of curiosity. "Go on." Carolyn took a deep breath, steadying herself. "You remember how, when Roy and I were at rock bottom, you stepped in and helped us? You offered us a hand when we had nowhere else to turn." Ronald nodded, his expression warm. "Of course," he said quietly. "I'll never forget it," Carolyn continued, her voice filled with emotion. "But the thing is, there are so many kids out there who are just like Roy was, lost, hungry, feeling like there's no way out. And it got me thinking, what if we opened a charitable restaurant? A place where homeless kids can come for a warm meal and a safe environment. We could use our skills and our resources to create something that really makes a difference." Ronald's eyes widened as he listened, and slowly, a smile spread across his face. "Carolyn, that's a wonderful idea. It aligns so well with everything we stand for and believe in. So, you'll do it?" Carolyn asked, her gaze fixed on him, her eyes hopeful. Absolutely, Ronald replied, without a second of hesitation. Let's start putting the plan into action right away. The next few weeks became a whirlwind of activity. Ronald and Carolyn spent countless hours poring over ideas, researching possibilities, and arranging meetings with local community leaders to gain their support. They finally decided to name their new restaurant Hope's Kitchen, a name meant to capture the vision of a brighter, more hopeful future for the kids they wanted to help. Roy, thrilled by the idea, eagerly contributed his own suggestions. "What if we had a reading corner?" he proposed one evening at dinner. "We could have books, maybe even set up tutoring sessions for the kids." Carolyn's face lit up with pride. "That's a wonderful idea, Roy," she said, smiling. "Education is just as essential as food for these children. We'll make sure they have that too." Hope's Kitchen was soon established in a lovingly refurbished building near the heart of the city. The interior was warm and welcoming, designed to feel like a safe haven for anyone who stepped inside. Finally, the day arrived for the grand opening of Hope's Kitchen. The early morning sun cast a golden glow over the newly renovated building, while inside, the atmosphere felt alive with warmth and purpose. The inviting scent of freshly baked bread and homemade soup filled the air, adding a comforting touch to the space. Decorations were kept simple but heartfelt, reflecting the soul of the place. Ronald stood by the entrance, his heart full of pride and anticipation, as he watched the first guests begin to trickle through the doors. The children's eyes widened in amazement as they took in the warm, inviting atmosphere of the restaurant. It was a stark contrast to the harsh, unfriendly streets they were used to, a world they had long known as unforgiving. Ronald's heart swelled with a powerful mix of pride and a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that he had helped create a place like this. This was more than just a restaurant. It was a sanctuary, a safe haven. Carolyn joined him, her face glowing with happiness as she looked around, taking in every detail. "It's beautiful, Ronald. Even more than I imagined," she said, her voice filled with awe. Ronald looked at her, his own voice heavy with emotion. "We did it together, Carolyn," he replied, the words carrying a quiet strength. "This is just the beginning." Just then, Roy ran over, his excitement spilling out as he spoke. "Mum, Mr. Clark, look. The kids love it, they're all smiling," he said, beaming as he gestured toward the children. Ronald couldn't help but smile too, reaching out to ruffle Roy's hair affectionately. "That's what it's all about, Roy," he said, his tone both gentle and firm. "Giving them a place where they can feel safe and happy." As the room filled with laughter and cheerful chatter, Ronald found himself reflecting on the journey that had led to this moment. From his own difficult childhood to the many challenges he and Carolyn had faced, every step had been worth it, bringing them to this point. As he looked around, he didn't just see the faces of the children. He saw the faces of those who had stood by them, supported their mission, and believed in their vision. Volunteers, generous donors, and community members had all come together, each playing a part in making Hope's Kitchen a reality. Carolyn moved over to one of the tables where a young girl sat alone, looking timid and unsure. Kneeling down to be at eye level with the girl, Carolyn spoke in a gentle, reassuring tone. "Hi there, I'm Carolyn. What's your name?" The girl looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and curiosity, her voice barely above a whisper as she answered, "Emily." Carolyn smiled warmly, her eyes full of kindness. "Well, Emily, we're so glad you're here," she said softly. "How about we get you something to eat?" Emily nodded, a small smile slowly spreading across her face as Carolyn took her hand and led her to the buffet, where Roy was eagerly helping serve food. Ronald watched them from a distance, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Carolyn's kindness and Roy's bright enthusiasm seemed to fill the room with warmth, spreading a sense of comfort and hope to everyone there. As the hours passed, more and more children arrived, each one greeted with the same warmth and compassion. The staff moved tirelessly, making sure every child felt welcome and cared for, creating a place where no one felt alone. Ronald walked through the crowd, stopping to talk with volunteers and guests, sharing stories and listening to theirs. The atmosphere was alive with a sense of community, a living testament to what they had built together. Finally, in a quiet moment, Ronald found himself by the window, looking out at the city, a place that had once seemed so unkind. He thought deeply about Carolyn's steadfast support and Roy's unbreakable resilience. His mind wandered to the children who had discovered newfound hope within these walls, a hope he'd witnessed growing day by day. This journey had been a tough one, filled with challenges at every turn, yet every single step and every struggle had been worth it. Carolyn stepped up beside him, slipping her arm through his with an affectionate, knowing smile. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Ronald returned her smile, still gazing out at the bustling street beyond the windows, filled with life and movement. "Just thinking about everything we've built here. We've come so far. This place, it's more than I ever thought it could be." "It's only the beginning," Carolyn said, her voice soft yet brimming with conviction. "There's so much more we can do. So many lives we haven't reached yet." Ronald turned to look at her, his eyes bright and determined. "You're right. This is just the start. We'll keep pushing forward, together." As the sun set, its warm light spilling gently over the tables and walls of Hope's kitchen, Ronald felt a deep, calming sense of peace settle within him. This restaurant had become more than just a place to eat. It was a safe harbor, a place of second chances, freely given and filled with compassion. It had grown into a beacon of resilience, a symbol of hope. Every person who stepped through its doors could feel that impact, the unmistakable legacy of kindness that filled the air and seemed destined to endure for years. The evening wound down, and as the last guests left and the dining room grew quiet, Ronald, Carolyn, and Roy stood together, looking around at the empty tables, each chair holding memories of people who had found a new beginning here. Although the sense of accomplishment they experienced was overwhelming, it also came with a strong sense of possibility for what lay ahead. "We've accomplished something truly incredible here," Ronald said, his voice thick with emotion. "But there's so much more to do," Carolyn replied, nodding, her eyes filled with the quiet hope that had carried them this far. "And we'll do it. Together." Roy, standing with them, grinned, his youthful optimism a perfect balance to the gravity of the moment. "We're a team, right?" Ronald placed a hand on Roy's shoulder, pulling Carolyn in close. "Yes, we are. And we always will be." As they stood in the quiet of Hope's kitchen, Ronald took a moment to reflect on everything that had brought them here. The struggles they had endured, the victories they had cherished, and the unbreakable bonds they had built together. He knew there would be more obstacles ahead, but he also knew that with kindness, resilience, and each other, they could handle anything that came their way. Hey everyone. Thank you so much for watching our story about Hope's Kitchen. We hope you felt the inspiration we felt while creating it. Ronald, Carolyn, and Roy's journey is a powerful reminder that with kindness, perseverance, and just a bit of hope, we can overcome any obstacle. Stories like these highlight how much of a difference community can make and the impact we can all have when we come together to help those in need. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more heartwarming and inspirational stories. Remember, you can make a difference in your own community too. Sometimes All it takes is a simple act of kindness to change someone's life. Thank you for being part of our community. Let's keep spreading positivity and making the world a better place, one story at a time. We'll see you in the next video.